Hey everyone, welcome back to Average Joe Preparedness. My name's Rick, and I'm an Average Joe. In today's video, we're going to discuss the Allegory of the Cave. Now, it's a story that was written by Plato, but it was actually done by Socrates. Now, rumor has it that Socrates never actually wrote anything down. So he just talked, and he was a philosopher and he did his thing. But Plato, anything associated with Socrates was actually written by Plato or one of his other students. So, and the story is from, give or take, about 400 plus years BC. So about 2,400 years ago, give or take. And it's called the Allegory of the Cave. Now, some of you might be saying, hey, Rick, man, I thought this was like Average Joe. This is like an average for average people, and you're talking about an allegory story from, 2,500 years ago with these philosopher people like Plato and Socrates. And okay, this is a good caveat. Maybe you don't know who these people are. Maybe you've never heard of these stories. It's a good opportunity to point out that you shouldn't stop learning, thinking, and you shouldn't leave your education up to the party or the state. Now, of course, I would never disagree with the party or the state when they decide what education you need, and that's what they're going to give you. But some people may. So, yeah, something for you to think about. You might want to, educate yourself on things, maybe. Yes? So as I mentioned, the story it's an allegory, which means that supposedly by definition that it's timeless. And that I hope so, because it's like, 2,500 years ago or something like that. So 400, whatever. And each person who hears a story has their own interpretation, slight interpretation. It means something different to each person. So I'm going to go over the story in general, and then maybe I'll give you a little bit of what I got from it, which doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to get. Everybody's going to get something different. That's the definition of this kind of story. So I'm going to shorten this down, make it as quick as I can. Basically, the story is about a cave and 4 types of people. And the first type of people, which many would consider the masses, or I'm sure there's derogatory terms like sheep, lemmings, or something along those lines, but we'll just peasants, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna go with the masses, okay? So the first type of people in this story, in the cave, are personalities number 1, which are the masses. Now the masses are chained in a chair, lined up, facing the back wall of the cave. Now the chains are real in some cases and metaphorical in others. They're self-done in others. It depends on how you see the story. The point being is they are chained to these chairs. They don't get up. And all they see is what's in front of them, which is a wall of a cave. That's their entire lives. They're barely aware of anybody on either side of them. They don't know these people. They just know themselves, where they are, and what they see and what they hear. Now behind them is a wall. Runs the whole distance. So chairs behind, wall. You with me so far? On the other side of the wall is the second type of personality, or the second type of people that are in this cave. Now, as I said, they're on the other side of the wall. Behind them is a flame, a fire. And that's the only light in the cave. So the second type of people are told, basically, to hold up items. In one of the translations, because the story's been translated so many times in different languages, they talk about them having puppets or just items, and they hold them up, and the shadow is cast up on the wall in front of the masses. It's not real. They're not actually seeing a book. It's a shadow of a book. They're not actually seeing an elephant, not that they would carry one, but it's a shadow of an elephant, because they're chained. They're chained They don't actually see anything. They simply see shadows. And because of the wall, when they're talking, they don't actually hear people's voices. The voices are echoed off the cave. So all the masses see and all the masses hear are shadows and echoes. Now, getting back to the second type of people, personalities, the ones on the other side of the wall. Now, they're told what to hold up and they're told what to say to influence the masses, to convince the masses, to show the masses. Now, some people may say, I wouldn't, of course, but some people may say in today's society, those would be talking heads, pundits, newscasters, the people that you see on TV or the cave wall, whatever you want to call it. Because you understand when you see something on a television, it's not real, it's little pixels of light. So if you see that elephant, if you've never actually seen an elephant, you've only seen it on TV or on your phone, on the screen, on the wall of the cave, it's just a shadow. It's not real. You with me? So anyways, they do what they're told. And in exchange, in trade, they're not chained. They get a little bit of power, a little bit of knowledge, and they want to keep it. So they do what they're told. Now behind them, by the fire, are the keepers of the flame. I think that's how the translation, one of the translations went in the story. But it could be easily put anyone who's in a position of power. A position of power. Someone who's in a position of power tells their pundits, their prostitutes, if you want to call them that. I wouldn't, of course. People that just sell their souls for money. Their talking heads, their newscasters, their PR team, whatever. People doing commercials. So the people in power control them. And they in turn help to control the masses. So, yeah. And then we'll get to the fourth type of person, the fourth type of personality, according to the story. It's someone who started off chained, and then things changed. Now, for whatever reason, these individuals, an individual, singular, multiple, doesn't matter, they became unsatisfied. They thought there was something more. So they broke their own chains. And usually those chains are, those links are forged by themselves. So by each person. So they're really not that hard once the mentality changes to break loose. And they stood up. And then they saw that they were surrounded by other people. And they saw that everyone was being shown the same thing. And then everyone's emotions were being put in a certain direction in mass. So they wanted to know what was going on. So they walked around the wall and they saw the second type of personality. These people, they saw them for what they were, that they were simply manipulating what was shown to the masses, what the masses saw and what the masses heard. And then they saw behind them, they saw the keepers of the flame. Now we'll take our hero of the story, the fourth type personality, if we call him that. They weren't satisfied because the second type of people, the personalities, they're like, hey, you're here. You're an influencer. You are one of us now. You've stepped out. We have more information. We have more freedom. We have more money. We have more power. Not as much as the people behind them, but we have more power than those masses that are just chained there, looking at these shadows and listening to these echoes that we're told to tell them. You should be, thankful. You should be here. I mean, we have all these followers, these people that are, listening to us. And what was it? One of the newscasters said once, we tell them what to think. We tell them how to think. And our hero, if we're going to call him that, they weren't happy. They actually thought it was a bad thing. So they decided to go and talk to the people that controlled them. Keepers of the flame. People in positions of power. So they went back to the flame, to these people, and they said, this is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. You're using these talking heads. You're using these pundits. You're using the shadows and the echoes to control people and not in a good way. You're doing it for no other reason but power and money. And the Keepers of the Flame said, yes, that's what we're doing. But yeah, if it wasn't us, it would be someone else, because people like this. The masses like control. The masses can't think for themselves. And our hero, person I know, was like, that's wrong. If they're just given the truth, if they're just shown what reality is, I think people like me. I'm just a normal person. I'm just an average Joe, you know. I'm just a normal. If I can do it, they can't do it. And they're like, no, you're the exception. No. So our hero decided, and they walked out of the cave. So our hero walked out of the cave. They saw the real world. They saw the sky for the first time, and they actually saw an elephant. We're going to keep using that one, elephant in the room. It's kind of funny. They actually saw it for real, not an echo, not a shadow. Saw butterflies and colors, real life. Not everything was good, you know, like rain and snow. I mean, actually feeling it, not just seeing it on television. These experience pain, maybe a little want, a little hunger, but it was real. It wasn't a fantasy. It wasn't what they were being told. It wasn't what they were being shown. It was real. It was real life. And they were basically excited. So they ran back down into the cave and they went to the Keepers of the Flame and they said, look, there's a real life out there. There's a world, there's a universe. You know, you need to stop doing this. You need to stop focusing these people on silly little things, you know, trite, trivial things, and let's live life. Let's go out into the world. Let them free. Let them free themselves. And the Keepers of the Flame said, no. So our hero ran up to the second type of people, the what could be called pundits or talking heads or newscasters, newsprint, whoever, it doesn't matter. Whoever's doing it, reporters. Again, that's up for you to decide. And say, look, there's a world out there, there's a real world, and you're stopping these people from, you're focusing them on, what was it? In the inauguration, I actually I read a little thing. They said, yeah, this inauguration, we're going back to normal now after Orange Man Bad. So now we can focus on the important things, like what people were wearing. I kid you not, that's actually what it was. What styles were being worn. That's what we can talk about now. We can go back to normal. What were they wearing? And so our hero said, you got to stop this, you know, stop helping control these people. And they said, no, we like it. We have this power. We have the freedom. We have money. We might not be the people in positions of power, but we're not chained. So we're not helping you. It ain't going to happen. So our hero in this story, if we want to call him a hero, went around to the wall and started shaking people and trying to break them loose and trying to let them know that there was a real world out there, and they didn't want to hear it. They were programmed. They wanted to stay just where they are. That was their reality. That was as much as reality as they believed that they were told that they could deal with. And they didn't hate those people that were showing them these things. They didn't hate the people behind that were controlling them, because they believed, because they were shown in shadows and echoes, that they were doing it for good reasons, that they knew better, and they just wanted to stay chained up, staring at the wall of the cave. Well, that wasn't good enough for our hero in this story. And they kept trying and they kept trying until the masses turned against them. That's how the story ends. Usually, that the fourth type of personality, the people that have actually seen the world for what it is and try to wake up the masses, ends up becoming a martyr. They're eviscerated. They're destroyed. In the extreme, they're actually killed. Now, you can probably think of some characters in history, or maybe even not so far ago, that have been eviscerated by the news, eviscerated by media, eviscerated by those talking heads over and over again, how terrible they were, and until there's just nothing left. Does that sound familiar to you? But hey, hold on a second. This is all just a story written like 2,500 years ago, so don't let it get you down. Yes? Now, I may have mentioned the Allegory of the Cave before in one of my other videos. The reason I'm doing it now is because I think it's actually a little pertinent. And let me give you a few cases in point. Besides the inauguration, and now we can discuss what people are wearing. That's not a joke, guys. I thought it was at first, and then I was like, are you serious? That is hilarious. But anyways, some of you may be confused because you're seeing things in the news that seem to be countering things that you saw in the news not that long ago. And there's a reason for it. See, please understand something. These people who are in charge are telling these people who are the ones that influence these people what is good, what is bad, what is right, and what is wrong. These people can't decide. They're like children. Yeah, they're like children. They don't have to think. They just have to be told what to do. So there's a book, 1984, everybody knows about it, but I don't know how many people have read it, where the party is, there's a thing in there, it's a quote, you can Google it, about the party is always right. So it doesn't matter what happened a week ago or a month ago or a year ago or a decade ago or 100 years ago. The party is always right. And they will destroy things and they will change how you remember them and how history remembers it until no one will ever question them. That everything they do has been, is now, and will be correct. I didn't write that. That's just in a book. So I'm just talking about a book, not what I actually believe. But anyways, you may notice that things that happened like a week ago or a month ago now have changed, but yet it's still good, but it was bad and now it's good. I don't understand. I don't understand how the people in charge would tell these people that are influencing these people that now it's good when it was bad. Really? Does it sound familiar at all, guys? At all? Just checking. So now, all joking aside, the reason I did it is seriously that you may notice things in the news that, again, have changed quickly. And please be aware that it's probably, some people would say, because these people who are in charge are telling these people to convince these people so they can stay in charge. So let me give you a really quick case in point, which seems obvious, but it might not be. California, 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, give or take, headline in the news was that, California's death rate was skyrocketing and, everybody needed to keep everything closed and stay inside and wear a mask and social distancing. And this was all brought about because Orange Man bad. Yes? But then yesterday, day before, California is reopening and everything is just fine. It was like 2 weeks. So what's the difference? Now, some of you pessimists out there would say, well, because now we have a new president and the party's always right. Because Orange Man bad wasn't part of the party, guys, on either side. But anyways, there actually may be another reason, and that's because there was a lawsuit and it looked like the federal courts were going to decide for the plaintiffs, which means that the closure was actually unconstitutional. Actually, it was an illegal, immoral, unethical, and unconstitutional thing that's been going on for almost a year that's destroyed the economy and destroyed people's lives and destroyed businesses. And if they had decided on them, what do you think all those businesses could have done to the government of California? Sued them. But, and they got this really cool legal term for it, if you stop whatever it was you were being sued for, then usually the case gets thrown out. There's a legal term for it. So whenever people in power invoke laws that they know are unconstitutional, once it gets to a point that those laws may actually get challenged, they either change the laws or they stop the laws. So while the laws were in effect, these illegal, immoral, unethical, and unconstitutional laws that they did intentionally, they got to exhibit that control. But then once it actually came out, they're like, oh, no, never mind, we changed. And the reason is because of precedents. So that way the courts never actually ruled on it, so that way next year they can do it again. And you're going to have to go through the whole lawsuit. So some people would say California's reopening up because they never should have been closed in the first place. Some people are saying it's because, well, now that, we have a new president, everything's just hunky-dory. And I think the vice president's actually from California. But anyways, doesn't matter. What I'm getting at is if you see things in the news that are suddenly changing and you're confused by that, you may want to fall back on the allegory of the cave, where those that are in charge are telling these people what these people need to believe, and that is that the party is always right. Yes? And some of you might be saying, okay, Rick, that's cool, but what does this got to do with preparing for what can happen, just ordinary things in life? Well, it's a step process, and let me tell you why. You need to think. These people are not thinking. And some people would say these people and these people are thinking irrationally. But I wouldn't go so far as the fourth character in the story. So here's the thing is, I'm not going to go and try to wake up the masses. Does that make sense? That's a bad idea. So what I'm getting at is, once you start thinking, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you're going to have these epiphanies. You're going to be like, holy Moses, I realize this, and you're going to want to tell people. And here's what I'm telling you right now. I'm giving you some advice. Don't do it. Because like right now, what was it? Facebook took all this stuff that people had deleted off their, digital signatures, turned it over to the FBI without even a warrant, which is pretty creepy, but you signed the agreement, you clicked on it, you didn't actually sign it. And they're actually talking in the news about re-education camps for people, which is very Orwellian, which is the 1984 book, which most of you haven't read. I highly recommend you read it, by the way. The point being is, I'm not going to a re-education camp. I'm not going to be eviscerated because I'm never going to question the party. And my advice is for you to do the same, i.e., don't do it. Now, if you decide to change how you see life, your life, if you decide to change how you see how they're trying to get you to live your life, then keep it to yourself. Please understand, you have no responsibility to go and try to change the masses. You might want to look at people who have, and it rarely ends well. Does that make sense? Unless you become one of the second personalities, in which case you're doing it because that's what you're told. Then you can influence people. Yes? And you'll be given some freedom, and you'll be given some extra money and extra information, and you can feel really good about yourself because you're not chained to the wall anymore. Does that make sense? So the whole point of this is I want people to think, and this is potentially a byproduct of thinking. Once you think, things aren't the same, which I think is good. Reality is what it is. The thing is don't become personality number 2. You are never going to become personality number 3. And don't take personality number 4 to the extreme. You don't, unless you want to be a martyr, which it's never been one of my goals. Yes? And I don't know if you guys were paying attention, but there's during the holidays, they were talking about how to talk to your relatives about this and that. And there's been families that have been torn apart over what they believe because they are, and those are families, I'm not talking about strangers, or your fellow citizens. I'm actually talking about families. So you might want to keep it to yourself, Cousin Eddie or whatever, if they're going to have to walk their own path. Everyone has their own path to walk. And you trying to grab people and shake them and wake them up, it doesn't do a lot of good. So if and when you're going down this path of thinking and you reach this point, which most people will, to get past it, you need to do just that, get past it. Don't try to change the world. Just try to change your world. Yes? Now, the point of this video is my disclaimer, for lack of a better term. If you start thinking, which I hope everyone does, if you start walking down that path and you realize things are maybe not as you're being told they are, acknowledge it and move on. That's part of your journey. Do not try to change the world. If you do, you are going to suffer, and then I don't want you coming back and blaming me and being like, well, Rick told me to do this, and no, I'm telling you to educate yourself. I'm telling you to think. I'm not telling you to try to change the world. That is a bad idea, and it ends poorly. Does that make sense? See, I'm putting out information, but you can click off this. You can unsubscribe, which I hope you guys don't. I hope you actually subscribe and hang out. But you have a choice. What I'm talking about is when people force it on others. They just beat them with it, metaphorically and in reality, these things happen, and then they have to suffer the consequences. Don't do it. If you have an epiphany, if you have a little bit of enlightenment and your life becomes better for it, and you go down that path, others are going to have to make those decisions on their own. You can't do it for them. If you force it, you are going to suffer. Does that make sense? Excellent. Again, I'll say I believe I did a video on this before. It was a while back, but this just seemed to be the right time because of what's going on in the news. I personally find it hilarious and not that confusing the way I think, but I figured I'd put it out there for if there was any of you that were confused by what you're seeing in the news, like, what was this and now it's this, I don't understand why. Please remember this, and then you can work on the whys, is because these people are telling these people to influence these people. Now, whatever it is, after that, you can ask why, and 5 times supposedly is the average, before you can find the root cause as to why are they doing it. And that's the process, that's part of the process of thinking, logical thought, which is going to get you through things. It's going to set you up for success. And when it comes to being prepared or a prepper, which we're not, because, that's a newspeak says that's bad, but preparedness, the overall in general, is you need to think. And sometimes what these people are telling these people that the masses should or shouldn't know is something you might want to take into consideration, because that kind of knowledge can set you up for success. Yes? Okay, well, it's still winter time. It was warm here for a little bit. Now it's freezing. Luckily, I got to prep a little bit in the yard. Went and got me some seeds for the springtime. I'm going to be expanding my garden, and we're going to get into more preparedness stuff this year. These videos are coming back to back because of what's actually going on in the news. I'll try to stay away from politics as always. And again, I owe you videos on camping food, and hopefully this year, Rona's not going to destroy all the outings, or if nothing else, I'll just go camping local and we'll test out a few things. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, commercial. If you like this, if you found anything interesting in this video, or if I teased you and maybe you want to see videos later on, or if you've gone watch some of the old videos and you're like, hey, those are cool, why don't you do something like that again, or hopes I will, do me a favor, subscribe. Like, the only way you can support this channel is by subscribing, liking, thumbing up, whatever, comments down below. If you have any suggestions, you can put them down below, or there's an email, I think, in the description box. You can shoot me an email and say, hey, what about this? What do you think about this? And we're gonna be moving into, again, it'll be little things around the house, how to save money, because these are the bedrock to me is finances, self-security, you taking care of yourself, being self-responsible, and then maybe having some fun and doing things like camping, which can help you in an emergency, because a lot of the things, if you can use it for this, you can use it for this, you can use it for that. We've talked about that before, and we're going to talk about that again. Okay, so to finish this video off, I hope this found you well, and in the meantime, be happy, be positive, and be prepared.